If you ever play Super Mario Sunshine, which is likely, you notice that the enemy designs are a little different to say the least. Despite being a little wonky design, I've always had a soft spot for them and how Nintendo decided to alter their appearances solely for this one particular game. But have you ever stopped and wondered, out of your busy schedule, what if the enemies for Super Mario Sunshine were in our world? How dangerous would these creatures be to an average human being? In this video, I'll be assessing each enemy individually and see how dangerous they will be realistically speaking. And with that out of the way, let's jump right in. The first enemy is Gooble. These strange jelly-like creatures that make weird noise love to make a mess on the ground and will explode on impact, whether they are jumped on or have launched themselves at you. Realistically speaking, these things are made entirely of soft gel-like substance and wouldn't do as much physical damage since they're, made out of jelly. The worst they can do is make a mess on your floors that you just mopped, and possibly make you sick with the filthy grime that is inside the Gooble, but aside from that, they should do little to no damage. The next one is Strolling Stu. In my opinion, the best enemy in the entire game. This charming polka dot wearing goober will charge straight at anyone they see without any hesitation, but realistically speaking, how much damage can they possibly do? I'm sure it would feel like a nudge in the ribs considering their short stature. An average human can just step on it and go about their day. I personally wouldn't step on it, but to each their own. The next one is Smoldering Stu. This is a drastic change from Strolling Stu because he is, well, on fire. Last time I checked, humans are not designed to handle fire to this degree. Imagine a fast-moving blob charging straight towards you while being on fire. That's a pretty terrifying thought, and would probably hurt like heck. If you don't have any fire extinguishing equipment, the most you can do is either run away or stop at it repeatedly to put the fire out. But either way, someone's getting hurt. The next one is Winged Strolling Stu. This is basically Strolling Stu but with wings. They are twice the nuisance of a regular one because they are able to take to the skies and swoop down to mess with you as much as they like. They attack by slamming the entire body weight on your head. I admit that sounds a little painful considering our heads are one of the most important body parts we have, and getting hit repeatedly would most likely result in a concussion, and that will not end well. The next one is Swiping Stu. This is a heavier and beefier version of the Winged Strolling Stu. Only this time, he is capable of stealing your hat, and can fly off anytime he wants. Since humans are not capable of flying, we can have our valuables stolen literally any time, if we don't have any weapons armed at the moment. That sounds like it would be a bad time for anyone. Getting hit in the head repeatedly and getting mugged at the same time sounds like a very unpleasant day. The next one is Giant Stu. This might be a bit too much stew than any human can handle. The Giant Stu alone looks like he's capable of trampling any human to death, and combining all those regular stews balanced on his head, they're in for a nice beat up session. If you have your own posse or are capable of fighting up multiple enemies at the same time, then it should be a piece of cake. If you're not any of these things, then I advise you run and never turn back. The next one is Piranhabon. This is essentially a giant piranha plant head that is absolutely filthy and probably weighs a ton. If you see this behemoth rolling down the hill towards you, it's best to jump out of the way or else you will suffer severe bone crushing related injuries and possibly death. Good news is it could be destroyed if stepped on, and will automatically dissolve in large bodies of water or so as long as you don't get hit, you'll be fine. The next one is Piranha Plant. This carnivorous man-eating plant should be avoided at all costs due to its devious nature. It camouflages itself in filth to await its next victim and snacks at whoever approaches it with razor-sharp teeth. If you don't have any water to feed it until it explodes, then you should avoid it at all costs. At least it won't move from its place and can't walk towards you. The next one is Electro Koopa. This electrifying beast is capable of literally throwing a shocking shell at you at blinding speeds. If you're not careful, you may find yourself on the floor spazzing out from the electro waves. How is this thing allowed at the amusement park anyways? I don't see how an average human is supposed to defeat it quickly while the shell is off its back, and without using any form of equipment either. This is one tough turtle. The next one is Snooze Koopa. This snoozy oversized turtle is just minding his own business, sleeping inside the sand and causing its sunflowers to wilt. If it weren't for that, these guys should pose no problem for any bystanders such as yourself. Sure, they look like they're capable of smashing your skull in, but as long as you don't wake them up, there shouldn't be any problems for average humans. The next one's Pokey. This happy-go-lucky sentient cactus will ambush any unsuspecting victim and throw his spiky body on them with full force. He is able to camouflage himself deep within the fields, so the fact that he's able to be sneaky and spiky all over is a dangerous combo. He's too tall to jump on directly for the average human, so your best bet would be to just run away and avoid that area altogether to avoid being impaled. The next one is Pokehead. This is basically a Pokey but with a fatter head and no body. He's still dangerous as he can just body slam into you with huge spikes, and is pretty quick on his non-existent feet as well. The only difference this time is that you could very well jump on his head to successfully defeat him. You just have to be quick about it. The next one's CD's Pod. This blue Pokehead is a little trickier than Poke's because once you approach it, it will immediately activate its security function by spitting out deadly seeds all over the place, which may hurt a bit. Unless you have a weapon you can use to shoot it from a safe distance, it's advised to avoid this thing altogether, just like with Poke's. The next one's Blooper. They're capable of shooting ink blobs at you and can wrap their sticky tentacles on you when you least suspect it. Seeing as they can survive outside of water, it may be a little awkward to counter while you're on your way to work. Try explaining that to your boss because it wouldn't let you go. Unless you can step on it, it will be a bit of a threat due to its size and agility. The next one's a Jumping Blooper. These are pretty harmless as they only reside in the water and hop around, minding their own business. Last time I checked, humans don't belong in water, so as long as you don't go out of your way to harm them, you should be fine. The next one's Cheep Cheep, another aquatic creature which may be more dangerous than the Blooper because it will target anyone who is swimming in the water and try to swallow them whole, which is a huge potential hazard, as you will not be able to breathe while in the water and ultimately drown due to the suction force. Just avoid swimming in the water where they are most abundant, and you should be fine. The next one's Skeeter. These swift water bugs skate on the water and just do their own thing. They're not really bothering anyone and will stay that way if you leave them alone. You could get a massive jumping height if you step on it. The next one's Cataquack. These menaces are always looking for an excuse to flip people over, and you can usually find them on the beaches and such. They're capable of launching anyone approximately 9 to 10 feet in the air, and landing would not be a pretty sight for anyone. I advise all beachgoers to avoid these wandering beasts at all costs if you want to keep on living. The next one's Plungelo. They use their unique suction feet to walk on giant oversized mirror panels. They're said to be walking on these only, so if you avoid them, they shouldn't be of any nuisance to people. It's best to avoid encountering them anyways, as defeating them will be a pain in the butt, literally. The next one are Boos, white and pink. These mischievous spirits are always causing mayhem in every large building such as hotels and mansions. The white ones seem to be the most troublesome, as they can vanish and haunt unsuspecting hotel guests and steal things. The pink ones on the other hand seem to mind their own business and loiter in one spot and turn into blocks when sprayed with water for some reason. They cannot be defeated, but the white ones can by just jumping on them, but it's best to delete them to a certain green plumber to handle. The next one are bees. Yup, just normal bees. In fact, they're already in our world, and as long as you leave them alone, they should be of no concern. Just let them make their delicious honey for us to enjoy. There's nothing more to say except that their stingers are no joke. I've been stung by one and it was absolutely painful. The next one's Clamber. This is a giant yellow spider that latches off fences and seems to be doing nothing but climb on it. It's not really bothering anyone, and unless you really need to use its fence, I would just leave it alone and it won't hurt you. I wouldn't want to mess with a spider of that caliber anyways. The next one's Chain Chomplet. These are literal giant iron puppies on fire and refuse to take a bath. They leave a trail of lava goop and are insanely dangerous for any nearby residents. How did they even get here in the first place? And why are our more people taking care of them? As normal humans, we don't stand a chance without any equipment, so I would just run away as far as possible and let the firefighters take care of them. The next one is Chain Chomp, a fully grown chain chomplet with an even meaner temper and girth. These vicious beasts would not cooperate with anyone and would literally eat you alive in one gulp. Unless you're specially trained at handling animals like these, it will be in your best interest to turn tail and go home right away, and do something else with your time like playing video games, because there is no way any average human would defeat this behemoth. The next one is Bullet Bill. The black, purple, and gold ones are included, and these are literal missiles bent on destroying anyone they encounter. Last time I checked, people weren't designed to handle explosions, and we would be set flying in pieces upon impact. So if you see a giant bullet heading towards you, I think that goes without saying. Remember, average humans don't have access to special equipment, so beating a bullet bill with your bare hands is almost impossible, so it's best to just run away. The next one is Bob-omb and Monty Mole. This crazed mole is determined to destroy anyone in his path by throwing literal walking bombs and shooting missiles. The bombs can be deactivated temporarily, but you have to be quick to throw them as they will explode eventually, and you can pick them up and throw them back at the mole. Seeing as Bob-ombs are kinda small and you could just step on them, there's a chance an average human can defeat the Monty Mole, which is kinda ironic seeing as this guy has the most arms out of most of the enemies in the list, and is more likely to be defeated. The next one is Poink. I don't really understand how this thing is considered an enemy, as they don't do any damage to you, and are more helpful to you than anything. They latch on nozzles and serve as sentient water balloons. They don't pose a threat to anyone, should be dangerous, unless you aim them at people and fire repeatedly. The next one is Cuckoo. These are fat flying chickens that poop out goop. They're not so different from regular birds in our world, except they seem to be more aggressive and toxic. Their group will cause people to be ill and spreads all sorts of diseases across the country if they're not handled quickly. Seeing as they're in the air, defeating them will prove to be challenging unless you had a long-range weapon of some kind. As it stands, it's almost very unlikely to kill it as an average human. The next one is Hadopop. This really isn't an enemy per se, but rather a nuisance that pops out of nowhere when entering a small space, and would just give someone a mini heart attack and then disappear. They're more used as practical jokes meant for a quick laugh, but these things scared me so badly as a kid the first time playing the game. The next one is Wind Spirits. These are annoying windy deities that will constantly bombard you with walking on unsteady bridges. Since they're literal spirits, defeating them as regular humans is very unlikely, and at most will bear the brunt of their attacks and may hurt. I don't see how anyone will win against these things unless you specialize in the dark arts and had a counterspell of some kind. The next one is the Wire Trap. This is an electrified spiky wheel thing that hangs out on thin rope. I don't know who made these exactly, and why they only hang on a rope, but as long as you don't have any need to walk on thin type rope, you should be fine from suffering an electrifying shock. Well, that's all the enemies in the game for now. I decided that the most dangerous enemy, Super Mario Sunshine according to the list, is none other than the Chain Chomp. Seeing as they're like 3 to 4 times the size of a normal human with razor sharp teeth that is capable of chomping down metal like paper, I think it's pretty obvious that this is considered the most dangerous enemy because of obvious reasons. Good thing these enemies are real or we will be so screwed. Thank you for watching. Do you agree with my reasoning, and what do you think is the most dangerous one in your opinion? Please like and subscribe if you want to for more videos like these.